It is not. I actually attended the Weight Stigma conference in 2016. And then I've been at other conferences that are kind of been centered around weight stigma, social movements in this area, fat activism.
It was my first weight conference, Weight Stigma conference, and it was great to be here. Yeah.
No, I did attend the ASDA conference just before the pandemic.
It was my first experience at a conference focused on weight at all and focused on weight stigma. It was great.
This is the first ever conference that I've been that is mostly by a lot of fat people for weight stigma, and I think it was really important for me to be in this space. Where I come from in Malaysia, there is very minimal work around fat liberation, weight stigma. The only way I can get to continue to do this work is by learning and by being in these spaces. So I felt very honored to be here and grateful for the experience and education.
This is my third Weight Stigma conference here, but it was my first time getting to take students with me, which was a total highlight, and my first time being kind of in my hometown with you all. So super nice to have you all here.
I've been to a couple of these now. This one by far, though, has been, I think, the most impactful in regards to seeing better research happening out there.
It was. I didn't even know that they existed, and I'm so happy they do.
The most impactful takeaway was actually seeing more fat presenters and fat researchers. I've attended a bunch of these conferences before, and straight allies are great, but it's nice to see fat people doing the research too and being able to present that research in an accepting environment.
As much as I enjoyed learning from all the different presenters and learning about all these different topics regarding fat liberation and weight stigma, I think the ultimate takeaway was just building community and getting to talk between presentations, getting to talk, overnight between the 2 different days, and getting to just be around so many fat people and so many really awesome allies as well. But hearing where people are from, hearing their experiences, and being able to share our lived experiences with each other, that's something that I've never experienced in my life so far. And I've never been around so many fat people in one place. And it was awesome. It was so great, and it was so empowering. And I feel like I can speak for a lot of us where I say we're leaving feeling really better than we came in, And even though we talked about so much that is broken and needs to be fixed, I think we left with a really solid plan of action and feeling a lot more energized and inspired.
I think the most impactful takeaway for me is that people are still doing the work. Right? I think that there is something to be said about people who are dedicated to moving things forward as it relates to progress, and that we're doing it in the lanes that speak to us the most, right? And so it's not that everybody has to do something a particular type of way, but we're doing things in a way that resonates with who we are as individuals, and we're finding our power and harnessing that to give to others in those spaces.
I'm feeling really invigorated. I'm feeling really inspired. By all the wonderful people and all the wonderful talks.
I think for me, the most impactful takeaway is learning about how much research is being done in medical fields, psychological fields everywhere to really confront anti-fat bias and the harm that it does, and in a way that I think is going very quickly, where I expect to see some of the impact from just this research affecting me in my personal life pretty soon.
I think my most impactful takeaway, especially coming from the health field, where I'm hoping to do advocacy within health, was actually to let up on that a little bit and remember that this is a human rights issue, this is a stigma issue, this is a humanity issue, and health and well-being is great, but it's not the point, and that was so echoed and reinforced and galvanized for me here, and I feel like it will make my work so much better.
For me, the biggest thing is medical weight stigma. It's very validating to hear from people from the medical industry. We don't need that external validation, yes, but to know that that work is being done will make a difference in how people are being treated. Because the work cannot just be done by fat people. People have to be allies to do the work also. I feel hopeful that there are changes albeit slowly, but it will happen.
When I was first involved in fat activism back from the 60s and 70s to today, it was, it was queers, trans folks, POC leading the way. And now it's kind of spread out to a lot of different people, and the academy is taking notice. So I think it's really exciting to see that. I was much more apparent this year.
Anytime that I started getting some momentum in my confidence, not that it's lacking, but just that, it's growing louder. There would be someone who would present one of those typical arguments, and I didn't have information to provide. So knowing not only that there is information that I can give them, but also that there are other people who will back me up who are not the same size, and thereby probably considered authorities, it left me empowered.
It really was so powerful to have everyone in this conversation where you don't have to start with excuses and being like, oh, there's reasons why people are fat. We should, respect fat folks. You don't have to start with that conversation. Whereas at other conferences, it feels like you have to do all of this heavy lifting in the beginning to be like, my research matters. And here we're already starting in that space. We already have that kind of interest that's shared, and it just really was nice to have that experience and to not feel like my point of view was going to be looked down upon, or that people were going to try to challenge me in every kind of way. And that was a really nice experience to have.
I live in academia land, and I do a lot of research, and it's really easy for me to get caught up in all of the details. And I think coming back again to just fat people deserve equity, period. That there's no because, that there's no explanation. So much of my life in my work is about providing all the becauses, the because, and showing all the evidence, and coming back to that place of we're humans, we deserve equity, we deserve care, we deserve love. That was such an important reminder for me, because I don't get to live there in the rest of my life. So I want to take that back to my students and the work that I do.
I think that conferences like these are so important to have to support. I think that for me specifically, because of the body that I live in, being surrounded by people who are unapologetically fat or learning to be unapologetically fat is so beautiful and so hopeful. And when I'm not in spaces like this, I still love my body, and I still, have plenty of fat positive thoughts and things, but it's different when you're around other people. You're allowed to flourish, and it just fosters a sense of beauty and appreciation. So
I always tell people that you're enough, you're more than enough, right? Keep being you, keep being great, keep shining. So I guess that's it. And, keep doing what you need to do in order to make change for someone else.
I feel really hopeful that this conference exists, and that there's so much passion at this conference, so much amazing work being done. I feel hopeful that it will grow bigger, and that the range of, it will have a far-reaching range as time continues to go on.
Be open and be humble. It was really wonderful to be here also as a white person, as a smaller fat person, and I'm fortunate to work in an Office of Equity and Inclusion, and they have that practice of coming in with that open mind. And a lot of the critique that we heard here, a lot of the pushback and reconsideration was just so important and so impactful, and I was glad and grateful that I came ready to hear that and ready to be open to that. And I think that can be harder, especially for white women, especially for smaller fat folks. And it's our time to really bask in the glory, and then get ready and get dirty and do the work. So that was my other big takeaway.
I mean, to be in a room full of people who understand what you're going through, and one of the speakers saying, I took away these slides because I don't have to explain this to you. This work shouldn't be expected of the people who are most marginalized, but if you can do this work, and if you have the capacity to do it, then that's how we push this work forward. And I can see this in the younger generation. A lot of the people present were also younger people who also were either smaller, like, straight-sized, or smaller fat people, and that's also good to know, that that's how you get the conversations moving.
Community is so essential to the work that we do. Part of the work that I do is studying how people heal from stigma. And every single study that I've looked at has always involved a community component. It's always involved connection, whether that's online or in person. And there is something about fat people all in one room, eating good food, wearing cool clothes, talking to people, hugging people, bumping bellies. Like, all of that is so freaking important. And it's healing for me every single time that I engage in that. And so, I don't know what the question was, but community is the heart.
I just think it's really cool to find your, especially in the academy, this niche area. And it's interdisciplinary too. It's not just I'm a social work scholar. It's not just this pile of social work scholars that all study this one thing. There's community members, there's physicians, there are all these different perspectives that are coming together. And I think it's really cool to find a common interest, but having different points of view, all looking at the same thing. And then you get all these different perspectives and different ideas. And it's a really cool thing. And finding those groups is really awesome.
Community is so important, and that I hope that conferences like these can continue to grow and can bring more fat people together, and that we get a louder voice, and we're human and we're here and we're not going away. So yeah.
My biggest takeaway is you just have to know just how big the circle of allies is. And whenever your confidence is faltering, whenever you hit a barrier, which is something that's happening for me right now, I'm trying to pursue medical care and I'm hitting some big walls. The looks that I get from doctors, they're just begging me not to have to examine me. So I came here to get some information, and there's a lot of information here that you can collect for yourself and use in pursuing treatment for yourself, or just find the confidence to carve your own space.